Several African countries have commended South Africa's formation of a government of national unity following the general elections. The polls failed to produce an outright majority of votes for any of the political parties. South Africa has not reported any cases of violence following the decision on the GNU. Ziniko Mhlaba filed this report.
The oldest liberation movement in Africa, the African National Congress, lost its absolute governing power during the general elections. Concerns were raised on how South Africa will shape up following the shocking but anticipated election results. However, political parties and the general public are now marching towards a peaceful path together.
And I must really congratulate South Africans and maybe the liberation movement in South Africa, ANC, which is the leading party now, that, even when it loses power, it humbles itself and ensures that the country remains stable. And I think that's something which South Africans must be appreciative of, that in South Africa, our democracy holds.
If there was a radical transition out of power, I think we would have seen more mayhem in South Africa compared to a more gradual shifting away from power. But even then, what that also highlights is the need for the professionalization of the public service, that they should still be able to run effectively, even in right now, these the 2 weeks that are dedicated towards the next movement in terms of the direction of the government and so forth. It highlights the need to re-look at law.
The decision by the ANC to mobilize other political parties under the Government of National Unity banner needs sober and patriotic heads.
Coalitions, by their essence, are contested arenas, as we have seen throughout the international community. Countries such as Sweden and Norway have had coalitions for 40 years and still managed to sustain sustainable governance. And sustainable governance only happens through the maturity of political actors in finding agreements on common areas to work on and trying to find a solution to the common areas that burden the country.
Somya believes that frank conversations should be held frequently by coalition governments.
And this is why there's a need for in South Africa for there to be a dialogue to shape the common policy areas that all political parties agree on, and to shape the direction of the service delivery that the people will have to undergo, along with how do we now address this burning crisis of unemployment and inequality within South Africa.
Political parties have so far shown that they have faith in the country's electoral system. This continues to impress the international community.
AU delegation came, there were observers here, and they gave us a thumbs up. So that means that even the AU delegation, when they report, they will be saying, look, it is important to look at how democracy manifests itself in terms of saying, if you lose an election, it does not mean that you should resort to violence. I think that's a very important message.
Despite some ongoing legal challenges, South Africa seems to have once again proved to have a solid constitutional democracy. President Cyril Ramaphosa will lead a government made up of members of the executive from different political parties. A choice made by South Africans, according to the president. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Ziniko Mhlaba in Johannesburg.